When 40K 3rd Edition came out, the game designers wanted to capitalize on the new rising trend of anime. Even though anime wasn't as large back in the late 90s and early 2000s as it is today, it was a growing interest among the demographic that GW wanted playing Warhammer 40K. With that, and with the fact that Games Workshop wanted to reintroduce Necrons back into the game properly, it was a great idea to bring back the universe's oldest faction and introduce the newest and youngest faction in the setting at the same time. Since their release, the Tau have been contentious, to say the least. For many fans of Warhammer, a lot of criticisms of the army are that they're usually overpowered, they're extremely annoying, their basic infantry outranges most other infantry, and their design doesn't fit 40K for a lot of people. The gameplay aspects, I understand. I have been on the receiving end of a Tau firing line multiple times, and the horror stories I have been told and shown of the broken Tau strategies back in 3rd and 4th were pretty bad, especially if you wanted to just have fun. However, for gameplay, the Tau aren't that much different from the Imperial Guard, although instead of getting buffs from officers, they use marker lights, special laser tags, to help their army shoot better. As well, their counters have always been melee and playing wars of attrition. As for their design, yeah, that's the point. They aren't supposed to fit with the grimdark setting. They are the new kids on the block, with both a naive ignorance of the galaxy, but also the willingness and means to adapt and overcome, unlike the other factions within the setting. Now, the reason I'm doing this is not only that my patrons voted for it, but also that a few mutuals and friends of mine want to know more about the Tau. And they don't have a lot of time to do the research, cause they have lives and projects they are working on. So as the ever-helpful innkeeper I am, let's talk about the Tau Empire, where they came from, how they operate in modern 40K, and dispel any misinformation we can about the faction. The Tau are a race located deep within what we call in 40K, the eastern fringe of the galaxy. Basically, next-door neighbors to the Ultramarines in the realm of Ultramar and its 500 worlds. Though the Adeptus Mechanicus discovered the Tau species in M35-789, the Tau at the time were considered primitive, barely into the Fire and Stone Age by human comparison. The Mechanicus was set to genocide the Tau from the universe completely, but a freak warp storm came out of nowhere and blocked the Tau's home system from the Mechanicus. With this new development and other events going on around the time, the Mechanicus just let them be. But behind that storm, the Tau's story would truly begin. The Tau's homeworld is an arid and hot world covered in deserts, savannas, and mountains. The Tau species that came to be on this planet were divided and physically different from one another. The Tau of the plains were physically stronger than the other Tau. The Tau of the mountains grew skin flaps and their bones were lighter, allowing them to glide and float. The Tau of the river valleys began to develop agriculture and metallurgy, and eventually those who would venture out to trade with other settlements became a wandering merchant group on crude barges. The groups lived in harmony for a time, but then the Avatar intro happened and it all went downhill really quickly. Much like the Namekians in Dragon Ball, the Tau faced a great crisis called the Mont Tau, a time in their history where the four groups were constantly warring with each other, leading to the destroyed lands and outbreaks of diseases that if it wasn't stopped, the Tau homeworld and its people would be extinct in a few short centuries. Though, out of nowhere, a new group calling themselves the Ethereals appeared during a siege of one of the river folk's greatest cities. The two Ethereals, who went into the people of the plains and the people of the river's camps respectively, had a charisma and ability to speak that no one could really ignore, much to the shock of both sides. The two Ethereals had both sides meet, and it was here that the Tau Empire would truly begin. Over the years, the Tau developed as a society, and they developed their technology as well. By the time of M38, the Tau had not only fully colonized their home system worlds, but also expanded out and meet other species, most notably the Kroot and Orcs. The Tau became fast allies of the Kroot, and after finding the Orcs to be a species that can't be reasoned with, assisted the Kroot in retaking their homeworld from an Orc empire. This event would see the Tau hold the Orcs in utter contempt. By M41, the Tau were into the Second Sphere expansion, and it brought in tons of new species, most notably the Vespid, and developed new technology like their famous battlesuits and new FTL drives that could take them even further than ever before. However, this is also where the Tau start to meet with the other factions of 40K, bringing them into conflicts like the Damocles Gulf, the Tyrannic Wars, and even more infamously, even they couldn't ignore or escape the consequences of it, Abaddon's 13th Black Crusade, splitting the galaxy in half. The Tau still stand strong even through all of this. Since their first war with the Imperium in the Damocles Gulf, they have had a total of 5 sphere expansions, and a 6th one is being planned out that will see the Tau finally exit the Eastern Fringe and take them into the realms of Ultramar, who in M42 are still recovering from the Plague Wars, caused by the forces of chaos and led by the Death Guard, and who the Tau had a brutal run-in with after the Ultramarines chased the Chosen of Nurgle out of their respective realms. Now that we are through the backstory, let's talk about the Tau's culture and society. Before I see this in the comments, no, the Tau are not communists. Their society isn't built to support the working class, nor to allow them to seize the means of production. They are an ethnocratic oligarchy with a caste system, something communism and socialism tend to really despise, so please let the meme die. We really need new ones for this community. Tau society is divided up into 5 castes: Earth, Fire, Water, Air, and the Ethereal caste. Each caste within Tau focuses on one part of the Empire. The Earth caste are the engineers, the Fire caste are the soldiers, the Water caste are the diplomats, the Air caste are the pilots and spacefarers, while the Ethereal caste are the supreme leaders of the Tau Empire itself. When identifying oneself, the Tau's naming structure can be broken down like this: the caste they hail from, their rank within the caste, the sept, the realm or star system that they were born in, and a personal name which is determined by notable actions, achievements, or individual quirks. For example, the famous Tau commander Farsight's name is Shas-O Viorla Shova Kais Montir, though the formal title is Oshova, which is what was translated to Commander Farsight. Now, when you are born into a caste, you are stuck in that caste. Ethereals are Ethereals, Fire caste is Fire caste, and you are a viewer that should subscribe and hit that bell icon. This means that there is to be no mingling of the caste romantically, and that their intercaste breeding is strictly forbidden, meaning that you will most likely never see a Water caste getting busy with a Fire caste. Sorry, Zutara shippers.
That's rough, buddy.
The Tau believe in 2 ways of warfare: Mont Ka and Keon. Mont Ka is the belief of the killing blow, a carefully planned, quick, and devastating strike that leaves its targets reeling and makes whatever is left easy to pick off and clean up. Keon is the belief of the patient hunter, using whatever you can to lure the enemy in and strike, while making sure the enemy can't counterattack or escape. How Tau military commanders go about their operations is usually by following or taking inspiration from these 2 military beliefs. Speaking of beliefs, the Tau believe in the greater good, a belief system that exemplifies the importance of the whole rather than oneself, meaning that the Tau and those who believe in the greater good will throw their lives away if it means the furtherment of the cause. Now, with this belief system, individuality, greed, and decadent wealth are outright disdained, while teamwork, compassion, and equality are strongly encouraged. Though, remember that the Ethereal caste is the highest amongst equals, and the other castes and allied species of the Tau don't really get a say on the Empire's destiny. They just get the power to reach for the gold the Ethereals lay down in any way they see fit. Now, the Ethereals are Interesting. They are the spiritual leaders of the Tau, acting as philosopher kings and nobles. They are treated with the highest respect, and the other casts of the Tau, much to the bewilderment of the other factions in 40K, will gladly do anything an ethereal asks of them. The theory is that the ethereals use pheromones to mind control the Tau, but that was a theory made by a radical inquisitor who is not an expert on biology. It's way more likely that due to how Tau society is structured and generations of political propaganda, that the Tau have simply fallen into a system of worship, social conditioning, and unquestioning indoctrination, much like what the current United States government is trying to force upon its people. The Empire counts 26 different alien species among its empire, known as their allied species, the most notable being the Kroot and Vespid, though some humans and even leagues of Votan kin can be counted among their numbers. Within Tau society, the allied species are allowed wide degrees of autonomy, and the Tau will even respect their faith and traditions, so long as it doesn't cause problems for the Empire or infringe on other beliefs or the stated goal of the greater good. Though, notably among the allied species, they do live better lives in the Tau Empire than any other empire in 40K, comparatively at least. Now, let's talk about the major subfactions within the Tau Empire. The Tau expansions have multiple septs within them that have their own ways of doing things to further the greater good. There are 6 major subfactions within the Tau. First up is the Tau Sept. This is the main sept of the Tau Empire, and for a while, these guys were the guys you'd see on the cover. They are considered the most experienced and flexible sept, as they have the guided wisdom of experience of the first and second sphere expansions to go on. They are known for their reliance on battlesuits, and are keen strategists even amongst the Tau, wanting to make sure their enemies are completely destroyed before moving on. These guys pretty much have all the special characters in the Tau, though said characters can be used in any sept you want. The sept after them is the Vior-La sept. This sept is known for its pure aggression and speed, specializing in training its forces to keep the enemy on the back foot with rapid assaults, while also being able to adapt and change tactics in a moment's notice. They heavily prefer the ways of Mont Ka, and even when using Kaon tactics, Vior-La commanders still tend to use aggressive strategies. These guys have become the poster boys for the Tau, and notably, Farsight was born here. Next up is Sacier. Now where Vior-La is extremely aggressive and fast, Sacier is a stark contrast, as their units tend to be extremely patient and disciplined. Their world of dome cities made them experts in urban warfare, in carefully trapping their enemies in marked kill zones. These guys prefer Kaon tactics and rarely use Mont Ka, only using it if they know for a fact it will end the conflict they are in quickly. After that is the Dal Yith. This sept is known for being the birthplace of the Tau's legendary commander, Puretide, who trained both Farsight and Shadowsun, though they are also known for being the place where the Imperium gave up the First Damocles Gulf Crusade. The Dal Yith rely heavily on its allied auxiliaries, and are more likely to extend a hand of peace to the enemy combatants than other septs. This is due to their world being heavily made up of the Water Caste, whose political and mercantile nature extended to even the Fire Caste of their world. Then there is Borkan. This sept is the most technologically advanced out of all of them, and they are famous for their scientists and technological innovations. Their units regularly field experimental weaponry and battlesuits, and with this, the military units from Borkan tend to be more experimental when it comes to tactics as well. They made the infamous Tau Ghostkeel and Riptide battlesuits. Last but not least is the Farsight Enclaves. This group is essentially made up of worlds from the Second Sphere expansion that fall under the command of the Renegade Commander, Farsight. This enclave is considered renegade by the Tau Empire proper, and although they still believe in the greater good, they believe in practicing independence from the whole, and that martyrdom is the highest form of expression. The leadership of each world is led by an elected council, though overall military command of the enclaves falls to Farsight and his Council of Eight. Now, let's talk about the Tau's relationship with other factions within 40K and the problems they have run into. The Tau are the youngest species in Warhammer, and they really show their youth with how they treat other factions within the universe. Though they have learned the horrors of the Necrons, the difference between Craftworld Eldar and Dark Eldar, and developed strategies to handle the Imperium and Orcs, and have faced down the Tyranids of Hive Fleet, Kraken, and Behemoth, they still remain ignorant to the forces of chaos and the warp. The Tau are barely visible to the warp. Their souls are like glow sticks compared to the light bulbs of humanities and the lighthouses of the Eldars. This makes them extremely unappetizing to the demons of chaos, and even when encountering demons, the Tau believe them to be just interdimensional demons, though the ethereal caste seems to know more than they let on. As for the forces of chaos, the Tau can't really tell the difference between Chaos Space Marines and regular Space Marines. They understand that the Imperium has constant infighting, but even when facing the horrors of the Death Guard, they just thought it was Space Marines using strange magic and allying up with strange interdimensional aliens. To be fair, both the Imperium and Chaos all seem like religious nutjobs to every other race in 40K, so it makes sense that the Tau would have this perspective. Though the Tau are running into the same problems that the Imperium and Eldar have run into when it came to their empires. With Farsight rebelling against the rule of the Ethereals, it shows that there are those who are willing to break the mold. As well, the Tau Force Sphere expansion ended horrifically, with the members being traumatized by being trapped in the warp. The consequences of it being that they became extremely xenophobic, to the point where Ethereals had to stop several genocides they tried to commit against allied species that had Psykers, though this behavior is only seen in the Force Sphere groups and no others. As for the allied species, those of them with Psykers who believe in the greater good have accidentally made a god, which the Tau haven't really understood or come to grips with yet. Though Shadow Sun has had a personal encounter with said god, and she doesn't really know how to react to it or how to feel about it. Last but not least is that the Tau are currently on a knife's edge. Anva, the Tau's supreme ethereal leader, was killed during the Second Damocles Gulf War, and the only one who knows of this are Shadow Sun and the highest leaders of the ethereal caste. The Anva that everyone sees is just an AI hologram. If the secret was to get out before Anva was given a natural death, the Tau Empire would probably collapse, as the death of Ethereals dropped the Tau into depressive spirals that either make them completely useless in grief, or lash out in uncontrolled anger. However, the Tau continue to strive for the ideals of the greater good, being the faction in 40K willing to extend a hand in friendship, and always welcome change and advancement. But they are still clearly a complicated empire, as although they offer better lives for their people, they are still a faction with clear evils within it. The Tau on the table are focused on being a ranged army, though they also have extensive Kroot and Vespid auxiliary forces to cover their melee weaknesses. The Tau rely on teamwork, using their marker lights to make targets easier to hit, so that their heavier hitting units can wipe out or soften up marked targets, or so their auxiliaries can take them out in melee combat. Though, the Tau aren't a very tough army, as their units fall apart in melee combat, and the only tough units they have are their battlesuits and Kroot riders. In the end, the Tau have the interesting perspective of a race just entering the 40K universe. Remember, they only started interacting with the Galactic community in M38, while we are currently in M42, meaning they really have only had 4,000 years of experience in the galaxy, which isn't very long considering the other factions around them. Though, unlike the other factions, they have shown a willingness to adapt and overcome their challenges, rather than fall into the same pitfalls that the Imperium, Chaos, and other alien factions have. If you want to play a ranged army that focuses more on teamwork than single-pointed buffs like Guard do, and have more model variety, then the Tau are your army. They are generally very easy to paint, as their armored units have more blocky and easily defined lines and details, while their playstyle is more like a ranged glass cannon, or with auxiliaries, mixing ranged and melee glass cannons together. Oh god, this was much longer than the Leagues of Votan video. However, we are going into the month of October, meaning that we'll be focused on the more spooky stuff, as well as making it the month of chaos! The Patreon poll will reflect that, so if you want to vote on what we talk about next, please subscribe. Your donations help keep the lights on, and you get to see my exclusive content, watch my videos for YouTube early, and vote on the next topics we discuss. As well, please subscribe here if you haven't already, and if you want to watch me be scared shitless, follow my Twitch, as I'll be streaming horror games for the majority of October. And if we get 15k subs here on YouTube, I'll stream and make a full review and breakdown of Warhammer 40K's Fire Warrior, the Halo 2 killer on PS2 that flopped hard. But until then, everyone, I'll see you next time when we talk about my favorite faction in all of 40K, the Thousand Sons.